hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Happy Halloween. Or if you're on YouTube, it's the week after Halloween. Doesn't matter. I couldn't wait. I did end up waiting like 2 days. I waited like a day and a half. I was like, oh, I couldn't watch it last night. And so I was like, I will just wait until tonight and then watch and put back on the suit, because how fitting that I'm wearing Reigen Arataka gear and he may be the leader of Claw. The fudge. I have so many questions and I was like, I can't wait. I just cannot. I know episode 9 is about to come out on Patreon. Episode 8's about to come out on YouTube, but I was like, I just couldn't wait. But to be fair, after this episode, I may take a bit of a break, right? Or maybe not. I don't know. But either way, I will probably have some more comments next episode to go through. And of course, we're going to keep the Reigen thirst update though. I don't think that 2 days is going to stop me from finding Reigen content. No. I have plenty we can go through, but I'm just going to take the highlights to show you all before we start, because it is officially rounding out Reigen birthday month and Halloween, so it feels warranted. But this was shared on the Discord. I don't know if any of you all have ever seen What We Do in the Shadows, but it's a really good movie. It's really funny. It's about vampires and werewolves and things. It's very Halloween appropriate. And so there was this shared where it's Mob and Ritsu as werewolves. And he's like, remember, and it's a quote from the movie. He's like, remember what Master Reigen says, we're werewolves, not swearwolves. It's like one of my favorite quotes from that movie. And I was like, yes. But yeah, that crossover, perfect. It kind of goes along with Reigen as the dog boy in the last episode. The only other non-related Reigen thing I have to share is that there was this one as well, which is about Shigeo and Teru, and he's like, oh, do you want to talk about SpongeBob? And then he's like, sure. And it says the conversation lasted for 9 hours. And I told this person on the Discord, I was like, my head canon is that conversation, that 9-hour conversation about SpongeBob, Teru talked for like 30 minutes, like throughout the entire conversation. And it was just Mob gushing about how much he loves SpongeBob. And Teru's just like, keep going, Mob, just keep talking. Y'all are getting me on the Teru Mob agenda and I'm here for it. So we'll see how that goes up. We'll see if the Ritsu Sho agenda gains some traction or not. Or maybe Sho won't be, I can't imagine Sho not being like a mainstay in the series because he's got such a distinct character design. He seems pretty cool so far, but he might not be. But I'm also imagining how would he be a mainstay. So I really don't know what we're going to end up have happening to Claw the rest of the season. Like, are they going to get, I don't imagine they're going to dissolve and get beaten, but I don't know. This series goes in no way, shape, or form how I think it's going to. So you can't really predict what's going to happen in a 24-minute episode. So there's that. But before we start, there are some Reigen thirst updates that I feel we need to go over. One in particular, but this one right here, it was shared twice in the Discord and everybody was like, no, it deserves to be shared. Baby girl, you stay on my mind. All I can think of is like the Ja Rule song. Baby girl, you stay on my mind. I just picture like that song is playing in the background as Reigen is sitting there eating that little dish that's way too hot for him, as we've seen previously in this season. God, I've missed Reigen the last 2.5 episodes. So the fact that we're getting him right off the bat, maybe in this one, and that he's Claw's boss, y'all, my fangirl it's very hard. I'm trying to keep it together. I'm trying to hold it together, right? But okay, speaking of holding it together, I could not for this one. So brace yourselves. But someone on Twitter, Evelyn at Tomakid, girl, boy, whoever you be, get these sold. Bones, get this person on your side, because it's like when you don't like any of the official figures, you customize one yourself. Hashtag Reigen sweep. Look at that. Look how amazing that is. That is amazing. And granted, it kind of looks like Light Yagami a little bit, but no, with Dimple on the shoulder and like on the table, there's like all the products and everything and the pose, the detail, the paint. It's amazing. But my favorite part, of course, as you probably would have guessed, is that there's the butt shot. And it's not that it's the butt shot or the fact that that is an amazing lower half of Reigen Arataka. But my favorite part about all of it is the comments on the side there. One says, double caked up on a Thursday afternoon. Double caked up. And then the other one right below it says, he's so caked up, it's the first thing I see. I feel like such an old lady. I'm like, what's the cake? I'm learning new words every day. I'm ancient. So I'm going to be like Granny in the nursing home. That's like, I remember back when Reagan Arataka had cake. And okay, Granny, let's go. And then the last one I wanted to share with you all is, just in case, if y'all have not sent me this Reagan Arataka cardboard cutout yet, that's what it looks like, just so you know. It doesn't look very big. Looks like you could put it in a box and ship it. Probably international shipping would be a lot, so I mean, don't feel obligated. But if you just happen to see one lying around and feel like sending it my way, or you could even just cut off like from the waist up and I can just stick it back there behind the bookshelf, it's fine. No, I am pretty obsessed with his like comb over and the glasses and that suit. I'm pretty obsessed with that Reagan Arataka drip, but it's fine. Don't need it. It's okay. Just dream about it constantly. But no, that was the Reagan Thirst update. And y'all, I honestly am so excited to see what's going to happen with our boy. And it's been a long time since he's been in the series. And I want him to save Mob and Teru and Ritsu, but I'm like, how in the world he's going to do that? Or is he going to save them? I don't know. Is it going to be a heel turn? And Reagan's been the villain all along. I don't know. I have so many questions, though. So many questions about what we've seen so far in this series. But there's a part of me that thinks, that maybe this is like the greatest con of all time. And this is what Reagan's pulling off. So I don't know. My tie is not wanting to cover up the fact that this shirt does not have a top button. So very fitting for Reagan Arataka, if you couldn't tell. So yeah, I'm ready, y'all. The penultimate episode of season 1. The penultimate episode's always a good one. The rule of 8 stands, and the penultimate episode's always good. The season finale either is going to be like, usually the season finale of a 12 episode series is either like really action packed, or it's like the resolution and it all comes crashing down. But the penultimate episode usually is either really amazing or it's a good setup for the season finale. So we'll see which one it is, right? But we're going to start Mob Psycho 100 episode 11. And we're going to do so here in 3, 2, 1. Oh, y'all, I will see you all on the other side. Did Reagan just become my favorite character? He kind of was already, but what a king. What a damn king. The fact that Reagen Arataka was able to take on the leader of a giant Esper organization and actually like had the upper hand for a hot second is the most incredible thing. And it's kind of amazing. But yeah, I think Reagan and Mob might be my favorites. But I love Teru too. So I would honestly think Teru and Mob and Reagan are my top 3 right now. But I love Dimple Sama as well. He's right up there as well. And so is Ritsu. So it's hard to pick my faves. Those would be my top 5. Those guys. They still have poor Dimple in the jar. They need to get him out of there somehow. But man, Reagan, what a fake out, right? Oh my God, that fake out was incredible. I'm so floored. I should have realized he was clearly not the boss of Claw. He's not a psychic. He's just Reagen Arataka. He's the greatest self-proclaimed psychic in history. And maybe also the best mentor, because my heartstrings were tugged throughout this episode. And if I wasn't so hyped up on adrenaline, I think I would have gotten a little teary-eyed, because there were a few moments with Reagan and Mob just where he was like, Mob, you don't have to do this. It's like, I love it. I freaking love it. So let's talk about Reagan and Mob, right? Let's put Reagen Arataka right here. Right, we'll do Reagan here, and we will do Mob here. And Reagan's whole thing, again, classic when he called him to try to figure out where he was, is that he gave, let's also say this, he gave Mob a phone with GPS. Where are Mob's parents? Are they worried? Are they concerned that their children have been missing for days? Maybe it's only been a day, but still you'd think they'd have like an alert out or something to like find them. But Reagan, and the fact that Reagan is the one who gave Mob the phone with GPS and not his parents, it's just, if he ends up on the husbando pole, I'll understand why. I can see why he won top DILF now, right? But Reigen being like, damn it, Mob. Saying, you could have let me know if you had other plans. He's like, why didn't you tell me? Why do you think I gave you a cell phone? He's like, I gave you a cell phone so you could call me. And so he asked the guy to drop him off. And this guy clearly knows that stuff that's kind of sketch happens out here. And that's why he was so, like, disturbed. At first, I thought it was because Reigen was the boss and the guy was scared of him. But no, it's this guy knows how dangerous it is out here. And he's like, I don't want to go to the sketch location. So he asked the guy to pay, like, 8,800 yen is like $80 in US dollars. So he's like, oh, that'll be an $80 cab fare. And Reigen's like, yeah, I don't think so. And he's like, here's some salt. But that guy's probably, he knows the only people that go out there are espers. So he's probably terrified to go out there. And so when he drops the bag of salt, he thinks that that Reigen's going to attack him. So he just lets him go. Genius, right? Reigen just got paying $100 for cab fare by throwing a bag of salt in his lap. Oh my God. And he's like, where are you going? What are you doing out so late? And he's like, don't worry. I'm not planning to do anything rash. And he's like, what the heck is he doing out here? Like, I love Reigen's just like, what's going on? Reigen is the adult of adults. He's right up there with Nanami. Nanami from Jujutsu Kaisen. He is the adult. He's like, why is Mob out here? He is basically just looking after Mob. But he handles it in such like a realistic approach. Like one of the things, I dropped my lid. One of the things that's been kind of hard with this series is this balance, because there's so many, like in the last few episodes, we've had these comic elements that seem like straight out of an anime, right? Like these comic shonen elements. But then you have a character like Reigen who is so down to earth and real. He doesn't treat this like a shonen anime or an animated series. He treats it like, okay, well, I'm going to go out here and find Mob. I'm an adult, so he's a kid. Let's go find him and bring him back home. Seems legit, right? And so I kind of love that. I love that kind of grounding that Reigen gives the series, right? When it starts, because the last few episodes, things have gotten bonkers, right? And Reigen's just like, whoa, what are we even doing? Like just, oh my God. So we have this flashback with Mob and Ritsu, right? They're in the forest and Mob is lost. And we have like the big grasshopper with the little grasshopper on top of it, which kind of seems like it's representative of Mob carrying Ritsu like as his little brother. And so Mob's like, oh, we'll find our way out of here. And he's like, oh, it's the same place as earlier. Oh no. He's like, I'm sorry, Ritsu, it's my fault for saying we should go exploring. And we have like the tree cut in half, which seems like everything's split right now. And Mob's like, he doesn't know what to do. So Mob, he feels guilty for getting Ritsu involved, right? He feels guilty for getting Ritsu involved in exploring, right? And so then, I'm just going to leave it all the same color because this episode. So then we have Ritsu, who is smart and strategic. Right? It's kind of cool to see Mob as the one that gets Ritsu to come out of his shell and go exploring. It's kind of cool because Mob has the butterfly net and everything. It's kind of fun because when you think of Mob, he seems so like kind of introverted, like he was shy. So sometimes with characters that are shy or introverted, it seems like they wouldn't be the ones to like lead an exploration like this. But Mob wanted to go exploring and have his brother with him. So it's really kind of cute, right? And he wanted to get Ritsu involved. But when they got lost, Ritsu's like, don't worry, I learned something in science class. He's like, forget the apologies. Let's focus on finding a way back. And he's like, yeah, but how? They're so freaking cute. Mob and Ritsu are the most adorable. It's so sweet. It's like, oh, I love it. It's so cute. Like, I want to just protect both of them. These precious beans that are sitting there, they look so soft. And he's like, I know, I learned in science class that moss grows on the north side where there's no sun. So if we just follow that, we'll get back to camp. And he's like, look, see, and he explains it. And he's only like a year younger than Mob, so even though he's his little brother, they're really close in age, right? So them learning about the same stuff in school seems accurate. And he's like, if we walk this way, we'll get to the river. And then Mob, he's like, let's go, Nissan. And then Mob, oh my God, with the little sweet face and the big sparkly eyes. And he's like, yeah. And I love when he does yeah and his little like bob like bounces. So freaking cute. And then he wakes up. And he's like, oh. And so I love Teru just like strolls in the frame. He's like, hey, what's up? See, you're awake. And I'm like, he ditched his sweater. Let it be known, Teru is not about to escape from a secret organization looking less than appropriate. He's like, my threads got charred, so I had to switch into this like shirt with the teddy bear image on it. It's kind of amazing. But Mob instantly has a headache when he wakes up. He's like, do you remember how you lost? And he's like, no, not at all. And he's like, Nissan, does your head hurt? Uh-huh. So Mob does not remember. He does not remember being 100%. Seems like he doesn't ever remember 100%, which is part of the problem because he always feels guilty afterwards because he wasn't in control, right? And so then, oh, poor Ritsu, like he's like, what could it be? Nothing serious, I hope. Like he's just so concerned about Mob, right? And they're all so beat up. He's like, I hope you didn't suffer any brain damage. And Mob's like, Ritsu. And then he can't look at him. And he's so ashamed, but Mob's like, no, I'm gonna hug you, little bro. Even though Ritsu's taller than him. He's like, I'm gonna hug you. I'm so glad you're safe. And Teru giving that sweet look at them. Like that sweet, wholesome look at them. Okay. All right, I'm Teru Mob officially. I'm like, Teru would fit right in with the fam. Let him come over. Let him be involved with this family. Teru's great. He's like, you're okay, right? And he's like, Nissan. He's like, let's hurry home, right, Hanazawa-kun? And he's like, well, we can't. We're stuck in this room. We can't use our powers. So yeah, there's like a secret like rune or some kind of symbol on the floor that's keeping them from being able to use psychic powers, which is problematic, right? It was futile no matter how many times I tried. So, like, what are they going to do? And he's like, okay. He's like, that's okay. We've got Ritsu with us. And Ritsu's like, what? And he's like, what can your little brother do? And he's like, he's really smart. And unlike me, who can't do anything without psychic powers. It's like, so Mob still thinks that psychic powers are his only talent. Because he's trying to get to where he can do more than that, but he still doesn't believe it, right? But he's like, Ritsu's smart. He's like, Ritsu doesn't need psychic powers. He can solve anything and figure it out. And Ritsu just like starts crying because it's like, and Teru's like, well, you're really proud of him, huh? That's so much that you rely on him. And he's like, I admire him immensely. Teru gets it. It's over. I'm shipping them so hard. It's just done. And he's like, that's not fair. He's like, you didn't even let me apologize to you. He's like, I needed to apologize. He's like, it's not fair that you're just praising me. Oh, the animation's so good. Oh, it's so sweet. Oh my god. Like Ritsu getting all soft again. God, this may be my favorite episode of the season so far. It may be my favorite episode of the season. I love this so much. So, okay. So the sealed room. I am going to use different colors on this one. For Claw. Okay. So we're going to come up here. We'll get some info about Claw. So Sakurai could make the sealed room. And it's established that he's able to work with curses. And his sword, okay, here's the thing. His sword is plastic. It's just cursed, right? Because when he slashed Reigen there at the end, there was no blood. It was just like his clothes were slashed and the force penetrated the ground. But there was no blood. So I think Reigen's okay. I think he might have just got like the wind knocked out of him or knocked unconscious. But I think he's okay. I don't think he's going to die, right? And so we see like there's Matsuo with the jar and everything. And he's like, of course. And so what now do we do? Are we going to make those intruders a new part of the upper echelon? And Ichiguro says, you're jumping the gun. We need to brainwash them thoroughly. So their plan is to brainwash the trio in order to be upper echelon. That's terrifying. I don't like the idea of brainwashing. I'm like, let's please not do that. if we can help it. And so then the show says, hold on a second. He's like, you're planning to turn decent talent into junk? So Show is like, excuse me? No. Show's not about that life. Show thinks that it would be a waste to brainwash them. He's like, no, let's not do that. He's like, that would just ruin their minds. He's like, that group of middle schoolers will be recruited to HQ. So he says that instead, they're going to be recruited to headquarters. Wherever that is, the main division, right? And he's like, Suzuki-kun, was it? So it's Sho Suzuki. Okay, and Matsuo looks over at him like, like, who are you, kid? And they're like, I call the shots in 7th Division, including personnel decisions. And he's like, I'm going to take them, especially the kid, especially Ritsu. Especially that Ritsu kid. I kind of like him. I'm like, there's my ship, my second ship. We really connected. He's like, he'll be a great friend. Oh my gosh. So he especially wants Ritsu. Fun times. I'm like, all my ships are setting sail this episode. And he's like, quit acting like you're more than a temp trainee, Suzuki. I'm not very kind, Sakurai says. He's like, oh, don't get so mad. He's like, are you actually upset about your coworkers being defeated? So yeah, Sakurai's like, you're a brat. And he's like, well, you guys get along pretty well then. And he's like, calm down, old man. He's like, that was a compliment. And so, yeah, he's like, everyone at HQ hates one another. So I feel at home here. All right. So, yeah. So HQ, everyone hates one another. So, yeah, that sounds like a pretty hostile environment. Don't think that, those kids need to go there. Sho is a bit of a threat, right? And he's like, kids these days. Interesting. But Sho hasn't faced the boss because he doesn't have any scars that we can see. Interesting. So yeah, then Reigen shows up, and here's the thing, like Dimple kind of alluded to at the beginning of this series, there's the idea that people who are like, these people have been brainwashed and stuff, so they're pretty easy to manipulate. And so Reigen like takes total advantage of it. And he's like, I ran out of business cards, what do I do? And he's like, listen up. He's like, what's going on in there? He's like, I need to go get my kid. Get back. And he's like, we have nothing to say to some weird outsider. And he's like, well, that's strange. He's like, I'm usually informed when something happens. Why did they draw Reigen so attractive in this episode? Like, what's the deal? Why are you making him look so good? Like, that suits don't fit guys that good, right? And he's like, can you all use psychic powers? Like, and he knows about this because of Mob, right? But he says he's never met any other espers before. So, like, what the heck? But then the guy, like, gets a hold of him to stop him, and Reigen uses his powers of bullshit. And he's like, I'm only here to talk about work with my subordinate. Which is the truth. Reigen does not lie this entire episode. He tells the truth. He didn't say anything that was a lie. He's like, no, I'm here to talk to my subordinate. Which is Mob, right? So he also says he's never met other espers. Which is good to know. But they're like, wow, the boss is so kind. He has this superior aura. It's like the aura that he exudes. I feel like Reigen is so normal, but he exudes such a BS aura that it's just like everybody else notices it. Like, what the hell? Oh my God. But yeah, he's come back to Japan. And so, and Reigen just rolls with it. He's like, whatever. He's like, if you're going to let me in, sure. And so apparently the boss was supposed to come next month. And they're like, what? Why is he here early? So the boss is coming next month. All right. And so they talk about there being an intruder, and he sees the kids and finds them. And he's like, we got caught again. And then Reigen says, don't be violent to kids. He's like, what are you doing? It's like, that's not cool. So yeah, so Reigen says lots of fun things. Like, he's like, don't hurt kids. He's like, what are you doing? Leave them out of this. You should not hurt children. okay, Reigen. He's like, I'm not that important. Again, he doesn't lie, right? But they think he's being modest, right? So they just roll with it. They're like, the real deal doesn't brag to children. Ah! And Reigen's just like, what the hell? And so he's like, maybe we'll actually be able to talk to him. And so they don't know that Reigen would know who Ritsu and Mob are. So they just tell him that somebody has been in custody. And so they go to find him. And he's like, were you guys really doing this? He's like, we're just following orders. And then Reigen's like, you're blaming others? He's like, what? He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, it's not right to commit villainy just because you were ordered to. Underlings who get too obedient are nothing but trash. Oh my God, Reigen's like whole like aura of being like, you garbage. He's like, don't be too obedient. And don't commit crimes. It's just like he's such a con man, but he's out here spouting this amazing advice and life lessons, and they're all like, oh, yes, of course. They're like, what we believed in. He's like, you fools. And they're all like, oh my God. Even if you're able to rise to the top like that, all you'll see when you look down is the filth you left in your wake. He's like, I don't know what you're trying to do here, but getting to the top only feels good when you do it the right way. What BS for like a con man to tell them that, but it's like not untrue, right? Oh my God. He's like, repent and reflect. Oh my God, I love it so much. He's like, we've been doing such petty things. And he's like, wow, he got to him really quickly. And he's like, well, they're easily manipulated. So they're like, who would guess the boss would be in a league of his own? So they've been trying to think of what to do. And Ritsu's like, well, we don't really know how to get out. So the best thing to do is just to save up our power for now. And again, I love that Teru's just sitting there like, yep, okay, cool, sounds great. I freaking love it. I love it. He's like, let's conserve our energy. He's like, no, that makes sense. Check it out. And the moment we get our powers back will be the decisive moment. And he's like, can we count on your strength too, right, little brother? And Mob's just like, oh, I don't want to involve Ritsu. So Mob, he's like, does not, if I can get this to right, does not want to involve Ritsu. Because it's his little brother. Why would he, right? And Teru's like, well, no, he's got powers. We can use him. And he's like, it's my fault for involving you all. He's like, I'll do what I can. And Mob's like, are you going to be okay? And Teru's like, hey, I was almost burned to death and I made it out fine. Mob's like, oh my God. He's like, if you get serious, then the two of us won't even have to fight. So that's interesting that Reigen, he does not want Mob to fight. And I kind of like that difference where Teru's like, oh, well, you can use your powers and fight. And Reigen's like, no, that's not what they're for. That's not good. He's like, they're here. And Reigen just strolls up, hands in his pocket. He's like, they're moving in a pack as always. And Mob's like, oh, hey. Oh, he's like, hey, Mob, what are you doing in a place like this? He's like, oh, your little brother's here too. And Teru's like, how do you know the Kageyama brothers? What is this? And they're like, don't talk to the boss that way. And I love Teru's expression. He's like, the boss? And Mob's like, what are you doing here, Master? And they're like, Master? And he's like, is that a wig? I love that he doesn't finish the sentence. He goes, is that a wig? Who is he? Is he your friend? I love that Reigen, he doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't complete. He's like, Mom, how do you know this guy? Do you know he's wearing a wig? What's going on? Oh my God. And he's like, that's Kageyama's master and Claw's boss. He's like, but this is our chance. We're being held here against our will. Let us go, please. And Reigen's just like, why do you have them trapped here? And then the guy's like, well, and he whispers it. And this looks exactly like a panel in the manga. I'm imagining this is from the manga. It has to be, right? It has to be. And he's like, why are you whispering? He's like, well, because it's top secret. And he's like, no, seriously. Like, no, really. Why are you whispering? Guys, that's a crime. I love that Teru's just so stumped. And then Mob's like, you're amazing, Master. He's like, did he really manage to fool them? And he's like, let's get after it. Are we saved? I love that Ritsu is like, Ritsu is a little bit like, Mob is just like, oh my god, are we saved? He did it. And Ritsu's a little bit skeptical, like, what's going on? Like, why are you here? Did you just come to get Mob? What's the deal? Like, Ritsu looks a little dark about it. So I'm going to be curious next episode, whatever happens there, if afterwards Ritsu confronts Reigen. That's going to be interesting. And they're like, boss, where are you going? He says, I said we're leaving. And he's like, well, shouldn't we wait for Ishiguro? And he's like, no. And then that's when they all show up, the 4 that are left. And Reigen's like, huh. He's like, interesting. And I was like, well, this is the moment of truth. Is he the boss or not? The answer is no, he's not the boss. He's like, who are you? You're not the boss. And he's like, introduce yourselves, you criminal organization. And so they explain who they are. And who might you be? And he's like, I'm the greatest psychic in modern history, Reigen Arataka Sama. Sama. And he's just so confident about it. And he's like, look me up. And they're like, what? You're not the boss? And then he's like, fraud or not, you had the nerve to disregard me and call yourself the boss. So we find out Ishiguro. And then they're all 3 like, oh shit, Ishiguro has legit powers. So Ishiguro is gravity-based. Of course he is. It's gravity-based. And I don't know if you've ever watched Bungo Stray Dogs. It's another series made by Bones, but there's a character in that series that has gravity powers, and it's done in the same red light as Ishiguro. So is it really him underneath the mask? Who knows? I wonder if we're going to see him without the mask. He's like, what are you talking about, you shrimp? He's like, okay, he says, I'll take care of you with my green belt in Shorinji Kimpo with a snap. Oh my god, so he also has a green belt. Oh my god, he has a green belt in Shorinji Kimpo. Well, now I have to find out what Shorinji Kimpo is, and I don't know. I didn't do karate, so I'm like, green belt. What is the green belt? Where is it on the locate? Where's the green belt? Okay, where is that? I'm gonna like go up here. All right, the black belts oversee the works of green belts. Okay, what is... Black belts have all the expertise held by green belts on Six Sigma tools and techniques, but they have a more thorough understanding of where and how to apply and methodology. Okay. It says they range in order from white to yellow, green, black, and master black. So he's not quite the 2 most common and important levels are green and black belt. So he's not a black belt, but he's a green belt. He's right under it. Of course he is. But I'm just like, again, Reigen Arataka, he went to school for 20 different things before deciding to become a con man. One of his expertise is being a black belt. Why are we bring a green belt? Why are we surprised? And then what is Shorinji Kimpo? It is Shaolin Temple boxing. Oh my god, I love it. So he is a green belt in temple boxing, which would be perfect alongside the fact that Mob's like he has spiritual powers. Oh my god. Reigen Arataka. And so then, like, this guy, like, is about to attack him, and Teru saves them. Luckily, Teru saves him, and Reigen's like, the fudge? I love Reigen's like, oh shit, they're actually psychic. Oh god, I can't BS my way out of this. And then Mob says, Master, you're a spiritual specialist. Stand back. Like, Mob's like, you're not fit for combat, sir. Oh my god. And Reigen's like, oh. And he's like, you've gathered some efficient pawns. If you gather enough, you might actually be able to oppose Claw. So, the Ishiguro and them, they're all thinking that Reigen is going to start gathering psychics to the cause to oppose Claw as an organization. And Reigen's like, this is stupid. He's like, no. He's like, why would we do that? And he's like, we'll die too. And he's like, no. He's like, get out of here. He's like I care. That guy's your boss, isn't he? And then Reagan's like, all of you go hide. Like, get out of here. If you want to make it big, you can't die here. And he gives him this beautiful speech where he's like, this is your chance to be freed from the shackles of this black organization. And they're all like starting to tear up and get emotional about it. He's like, leave this to my student and go. And he's like, you're such a kind person. Thank you. They say you're such a... And then I love that he says, actually, I'll be going too. He just runs away. But he can't because the ceiling caves in. He tries to run, but he can't. And then he's like, the ceiling, oh no. Oh, he's like, you're not getting away. And Reagan's like, oh shit, I'm stuck here. What's going on? There are seriously espers other than Mob. Reagan. For being someone that's totally BSing his way through this episode, he's doing amazing. And Ritsu's like, well, I'm no match for that power. And Teru's like, yeah, it's pretty difficult for me too. I don't know how I'm going to handle it. And they're like, Mob, it's going to be up to you. And the moment they say it's up to you, Reagan's like, what are you doing? It's like, what are you doing, Mob? He's like, hey, hold on. Wait a minute. And they're like, yes, he's strong. I'll take care of him. I'm sure he's never met anyone stronger than him yet. Oh my God. And so, yeah, he's like, he uses those gravity powers. And it's this big, intense moment that like the last few episodes have been setting up. But then Reagan cuts through all of that in an instant, being like, and they're like, what is going on? And Reagan's like, Mob, what are you doing? It just stops. He's like, Master. He's like, you're not bad being able to resist my powers. And so he goes to do this, but Reagan's like, screw that! Anti-esper dropkick! They made him look so good! Oh my God! I friggin' cannot. I also want to make note that when you see like his pant leg fly up, he has the hairy legs. Oh my God. It's absolutely amazing. That is the most wonderful thing. The anti-esper dropkick. One of his special moves. In which he drop kicks an Esper as hard as he can. That's it. That's all he did. Oh my God. I mean, granted, that worked. Are you planning on fighting these guys with your psychic powers? He's like, didn't I tell you it's dangerous to use them against others? Are you going to break the rule? And then Ritsu's like, he had a rule like that? He's like, well, he had to save me. He had no choice. So yeah, so Ritsu is interesting in this episode because at first he thinks that Reagan's really shady. And then he thinks back being like, so did Reagan tell Mob he couldn't use his powers? Okay, so is that where all of this started? Okay. And he's like, didn't have a choice. And Teru's like soaking it all in. And Reagan like listens to Ritsu. And he like turns his back where we can't see him. And he's like, Mob, you felt that cornered. And Mob's like, oh. And then Reagan, God, he just has like the blackened face. Like he's just like, what has happened to my protege? Why is he like this? He's like, it must have been rough for you. Confronting others is the hardest thing for him. Especially confronting adults like you. Oh, Reagan knows. He knows how hard things can be for Mob. And so it's just like, he's like, how dare you bully him? He's like, watching you guys bully a kid who's so awkward and gets easily discouraged definitely doesn't make me feel good. So he stands up for Mob and he's like, I know exactly what Mob goes through and how much difficulties he's had. And you guys just took advantage of him and used him for his powers. Like, that's not right. He's like, stop stressing out my student. Oh, Reagan. And they're like, well, are you going to fight us instead? And so the Reagan's like, let me tell you something. As he like flips his hair, he's like, you're not supposed to harm others. And then Ritsu's like, or Teru's like, but wait, dropkicks are okay? He's like, if you're not going to listen, I'm going to fight you. So yeah, Reagan is a walking contradiction, right? He's a con man, but he gives all this good advice. He preaches not to be violent, but he uses violence. He is literally a walking contradiction, but he's also amazing. So there we go. He's like, my position as a temporary guardian, I'm not going to let them fight. So yeah, he claims himself as their temporary guardian. Take him on all the field trips, right? And so then he uses the whole hypnosis thing where he's like, I'm going to use my hypnosis tool on you. And Sakurai's like, there's like literally nothing coming from him. So is he dangerous? What? And then it gets really close and he's like, what's his master's power? But then he gets close enough to the guy and he's like, if this is a ruse, it's going to be dangerous. And he's like, while you're watching this. And he just punches him! Hypnosis punch! Oh my God. Reigen, you beautiful, beautiful man who has the cheapest moves. He like suddenly punches his opponent. But yeah, Sakurai. So then Sakurai attacks him and Teru grabs him out of the way. And he's like, what's up with that? He's like, that's a really sharp katana. He's like, no, Jugen. It's actually a toy sword made out of plastic. So yeah, these guys they're all children who never grew up. As he says, yeah, the whole thing with Claw is that they're all children who never grew up. Like him using the plastic sword and the girl with dolls and them playing with fire. Like they're all doing like childish things and they never became adults. And Reigen's like, it's not cool. And he doesn't want Mob or any of them to fall in line in the same way, right? And then Matsuo grabs all like the monsters that Reigen can't see. And then Ishiguro wakes up. And then Reigen realizes that he messed up. Reigen's like, well, shit. He's like, I was going to try to reason with them while they were being panicked from being hit. He's like, I was going to argue with them and argue my way out of this. He's like, but all I did instead was just piss him off. He's like, I messed up. And it's like Reigen was very confident in defeating others with arguments. He never lost to anyone with an argument, no matter who they were. So he is a master debater. Yep, surprising no one. He can argue with anybody and win. Look at that. And then, yeah, but he's like, that's only when I'm dealing with adults. He's like, these people aren't adults. These are brutes who are actually attacking middle school children. He's like, they're seriously talking about taking over the world. He's like, these aren't adults. They are children. They're children who failed to grow up. How did they end up like this? The answer is simple. And so he doesn't say the answer, though. He says the answer is simple. They just kept using their psychic powers and then they kind of were like Teru. They just got delusional and couldn't get out of this state, right? So he's like, we got to get out of here. And so then they go to attack him and Reigen like is about to get blown up and Mob ends up saving him, right? And then from here, the animation just gets bonkers. The animation at this point, it's just like the animation from episode 8. It just goes off the rails. And God, it's just all like crazy. Like, I don't know who the art director was, but I feel like it was the same one as episode 8. But it's Sakurai versus Ritsu, or Sakurai versus Teru, as everything starts getting torn apart, right? And just them using their psychic powers against one another. Ritsu's using his psychic powers. Mob is thinking about using his. Oh my God, the Sakurai versus Teru battle. And then he cut off the wig. The wig is gone. Oh my God. But he has hair underneath it, right? So, interesting. He's like, you look better that way. Yeah, Teru looks a lot better with the hair cut, and now he actually has hair. So, maybe it's a wig, maybe it's not. He's like, you look better that way. Oh, and Teru's like, he's like, there's some weirdos back there. Reigen's like, what the hell's going on? What is all this nonsense? He's like, we need to go. If they were evil spirits, I'd be able to exorcise them. Oh, so he tells Mob, he's like, man, there's some weirdos. He can't actually see the spirits, but he tells Mob, he's like, there's some weirdos there. He's like, man, if we can only exorcise them. And then Mob's like, can't we? And he's like, just try it. And then all Mob does is go poop, and they all disappear. And he's like, and he turns into like a sketch. He turns into a marker sketch like from the manga. And he's like, well, I guess you can just do that, can't you? And then he's like, my ultimate creation. Instead, he gets Candy-chan to come out. And yeah, Reigen can't see this. He's like, we need to get out of here. He's like, don't bother with them, Mob. Like, he doesn't understand. He can't see what's there, but he knows that it's probably something dangerous, so he's trying to lure Mob away. He's like, Kageyama. And meanwhile, Teru is telling him to use his power and blow them away. And Reigen's like, don't. He's like, don't fight back. He's like, don't, just run away. He's like, I'm an adult. I'll deal with them. So you have Reigen being like, I'm the adult, let me do this. You're a kid, don't stop doing that. And the thing of it is that it's this weird dynamic because there's Teru, who knows that Mob has these powers and that could fight them, theoretically, right? But then there's Reigen who's like, he's never seen Mob go 100%. Reigen's never seen that. So, but Reigen's like, no, you're a kid. And also, what I love about it is Reigen's like, no, you obviously hate. You told me the first day we met that you're scared of your powers and you're scared of not being able to control them. So he's like, don't do that. You'll just make yourself feel worse and you'll suffer for it. He's like, don't. You don't have to do that. You can just walk away. Oh my gosh. Like, for a mentor to tell them that, like in a shonen, don't stoop to their level. And poor Reigen, poor Mob is like up to like 88%. And then Ritsu's trying to block them all. He's like, there's one chance. Nissan's the only one that stands a chance. He's like, Ritsu, you're right. I have to defeat them. But it's like, that's all Mob's going to become, is just somebody. All he will do is become something that just fights using his psychic powers. And Reigen doesn't want that. He's like, don't fight back, Mob. He's like, Ritsu's hurt. He's like, you have to fight power with power. But he's like, at this rate, we're all going to die. And Reigen's like, we just need to get away. But Teru's like, well, how do we run away? There's no way for us to run while dealing with their fierce attacks. And he's like, use the power you used back then. And then Reigen's like, we just need to calm down. We don't need to go head on with someone who has murderous intent. Oh. And then Ritsu gets hurt. And Ishiguro's like, all four of you are going to hell. And poor Mob is so conflicted. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, I can't let them die. And he's like, I have no choice but to fight with all I've got. And that's the problem, is that it's like, if I can't protect them, I don't care what happens to my opponents. So that's the thing, is that Mob, all he knows is that he wants to protect them. And so then we have murderous intent. All of these emotions so far have been negative. The 100%, they've all been negative. We've had rage, we've had rejection, we've had sadness, and now murderous intent. So those are all like really negative emotions. And so then he's about to 100, and Reigen stops him. He's like, no. Oh my God. This moment where he just grabs him and like just smacks him. And the look on Reigen's face where he's like, stop. He's like, don't do it, Mob. You're the one who's going to end up suffering in the end. He's like, when things go south, it's okay to run away. He's like, I've done it all the time. I'm a con man. He's like, it's okay to leave when things go bad. And then Mob sees, and the episode's called Master Leader. And we see Reigen and Mob when he was a kid. And him showing up to the spirit office at one point. And so here's the thing. I honestly, like, we see Reigen smoke in the ED, but we don't really see him smoke in the episodes, right? We don't see him smoking at work, right? So I like to think, my headcanon is that he doesn't smoke around Mob because he's a kid. Kind of like there's Spy Family, this other anime, where there's like a father figure, Lloyd, and Lloyd in one episode tells the guy that he's working with, he's like, oh, I don't smoke because I have a kid now, and it's not healthy for them. And so I like to think that Reigen stopped smoking once he started talking with Mob. Like, at least he didn't smoke in the office. Because we don't see him do that, right? But he looks kind of like, just kind of sad there. And then Mob shows up and he's like, I came here because I saw your sign. And Reigen puts on like he's like, oh, hi. And then he's like, oh, it's just a kid. Like, you probably aren't going to pay me. And Mob's like, oh, hi. And he's like, what do you want, boy? Like, just how much Reigen has changed because of Mob, just based on this interaction, how much Reigen has changed because he instantly could read Mob. He's like, what do you want? He's like, I'm an Esper. And Reigen goes, huh? He's like, there's times when I can't control my powers very well. And it's scary. And you just see how uncomfortable Reigen is in that moment. Like, he's just like, oh, this kid's come to talk about me about some lie. Because Mob's like, it's hard for me to control my powers, and it's scary sometimes. And Reigen's like, did someone tell you to come here and tell me that? Like, he's just such a different person, right? And then Mob's like, oh no, I haven't been able to talk to anybody about this. He just saw the sign, and he thought that Reigen was somebody he could talk to. Oh my God. He's like, I thought you might be the same as me, because you're a psychic. He's like, if I tried, I could see spirits too. And Reigen's like, well, come on in. He lets him come in. He's like, okay. And he makes them tea. He makes some green tea. And he's like, I was troubled a lot when I was a kid too. And he's like, oh. Now the question is this true or not? Did Reigen tell a lie? Was he really troubled as a kid? Or did he just say that to like connect to Mob? But it doesn't matter, right? Because he sees Mob. As soon as Mob's like, oh, you were like me. Then Reigen's like, okay. He's like, all right. I got to be the adult here. He's like, just because you have psychic powers doesn't make you any less human. And like everything he tells Mob like is soaking it all in with the big sparkly eyes. Just like what he had for Ritsu. It's the same for people who are fast and people who are book smart. And people who have strong body odor. Psychic powers are just another characteristic. And he's just sitting there like, yeah, like he's just soaking it all in. Oh my God, I can't. That little head bob where he was just soaking it in. It's the sweetest thing. He's like, yeah. And he's like, you must embrace that as part of yourself and continue to live positively. The truth behind one's charm is kindness. Oh my God. And he's like, become a good person. That's all. Oh. He's like, can I come and talk to you again? And he's like, oh, well, about that. He's like, I'm pretty busy, I don't know. I don't know. I just gave you this advice, kid. I don't know if I want to do this. Like, you should go home for a day. And he's like, oh, it's hot. And he's like, oh, hey, don't get burned. And even when he dropped it, he was like, oh, watch out, kid. Like, he was looking out for him. And then Mob uses his psychic powers to put the tea back in the glass. And Reigen's like, did you say you could see ghosts too? And Mob's like, He's like, yes. And he's like, do you know how to exercise them? He's like, And he's like, yeah, you can come back tomorrow around the same time. And he's like, really? And he's like, I'll show you how to use your powers. So yeah, the con man with a heart of gold who helped this kid. Reigen Arataka, my dude. But yeah, and then we cut back to Mob. But that's when Sakurai is above him and he slices him. But I think he just knocked him out. Because he said it was a plastic sword. I think there was no blood, so I think he just knocked him out. But that's where the episode ends, and we're at 100%. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. So yeah. Looks like next episode's the season finale, and shit's gonna go down. So that's fun. But yeah, so I don't know what to expect next episode. It doesn't seem good. But yeah, Reigen's sweep is earned, y'all. Reigen's sweep is earned because yeah, he's a con man and completely full of shit. But he's also like one of the kindest people to Mob and gave him such good advice and genuinely cares about him. Like put himself in danger to keep Mob safe. Ugh. And so it's interesting. I feel like Ritsu and Teru and Reigen may be at odds with one another after all this is said and done because their view of how Mob should use his psychic powers all seems to vary. So it's going to be interesting to see like what the aftermath of this next episode is going to be. But y'all, we've got one more episode until the season finale. This is the season finale. One more episode of season 1. And then we'll be moving on to season 2. insanity. I hope we have the OP and Edie next episode because I want to enjoy them one more time. But, oh man, this was a really good episode. It's probably my favorite so far. If I'm being honest, this episode's probably my favorite. I loved it a lot. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers. But yeah, I'm excited to see it. We haven't seen Sho. Sho is mysteriously absent at the end of this. So did Sho leave, or is he waiting to see what happens in the aftermath? Is he going to try to just yoink Ritsu and the others and run off with them? I don't know. We'll see. So in the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I'll be back next week with the season finale of Mob Psycho. Bye.